Hey everyone, this is Austin Patry with Get Those Cryptos, where I will simplify and explain this complex and confusing world of cryptocurrencies and blockchain. So we're going to do something a little different today. Today and for the future, we're going to be talking with Mason Nystrom, who's one of my good friends. We actually met freshman year in college, lived across from the dorms. And we're going to start talking all things crypto together. He actually just finished up with a cryptocurrency exchange called Gatecoin in Hong Kong. So he has a lot of knowledge to bring to the table, and we're excited to chat together. I think we're going to start doing some weekly, maybe a couple days of the week, start doing some news recaps and some ICO spotlights of different coins and everything. So stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. And if you are already a subscriber, make sure to like this video. So Mason, great having you on here as always. Nice talking with you.
Hey, Austin. Great to be on.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little screen share here. And well, first I want to talk about you and your experience at Gatecoin. You said this past Friday you just finished your internship at Gatecoin, which is a cryptocurrency exchange in Hong Kong. So if you can, kind of open-ended question, just how was that and what was your role at Gatecoin and how was your experience, everything?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been working at Gatecoin, a cryptocurrency exchange based here in Hong Kong for the past 6 months, and I did a lot in various facets of the business environment. So I helped out on the marketing side with a lot of like blog posts, a lot of media relations, stuff like that. But then I also performed a lot of due diligence on a lot of assets that we were looking to list. I would do due diligence on projects that wanted to be listed on our exchange or wanted to have an ICO conducted through our exchange. So I got pretty well versed in, looking at white papers. There's a lot of shitty white papers, but it's still fun to look at. You really get a sense of what a lot of people are trying to do in the crypto ecosystem. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I definitely caught the infection that is knowing and loving about crypto. So I'm definitely here to stay in the environment, and it's really been incredible.
Awesome. So the golden question everyone wants to know is, when reading a white paper, what do you look for? What are the best things that we can look for when we want to invest, or what would you look for Gatecoins? Is that something different? Do you personally try and find specific things as opposed to what would qualify for Gatecoin?
Yeah, so there's a couple questions there. First, I think when you're looking at a white paper or any project in general, the most important thing is the team. The founding team is the most important thing. Second most important thing is the team. Honestly, like, I can't stress that enough. Like, if they have a team that is experienced, that knows what they're doing, or that has prior success, then they're going to be a lot more successful than probably teams that haven't. And so that's actually kind of like one of the double-edged swords, because since it's such a new space, a lot of people don't really have a lot of experience, but there's some people who do, and that's the best thing you can look for. I think it's also really valuable to look at what the project's trying to do. What problem are they trying to solve? Is it a problem? Because a lot of times, people are like, okay, I'm going to combine AI, AR, and blockchain. And it's like, okay, well, what are you trying to do with that?
Every buzzword there is, just combine it all into one.
Yeah, it's like, then you got a white paper. But so there's a lot of people trying to solve problems that aren't problems. And, those aren't necessarily good use cases. So I think that you have to really, really look at what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish. And then I think it's also really valuable to look at the way they're trying to do that, their token model. Maybe they don't need a token. A lot of projects don't. And I'll say it right now, 95% of these projects, if not more, will fail. It's going to be crazy when these projects have like tons of revenue and they either don't develop a product or they don't develop revenue from it. So you definitely have to do your own research, do your own due diligence, because it's really important. And then to answer your other question about, Gatecoin and, what they kind of look for. So it's a little different because as an exchange, you're not necessarily directly investing in a individual cryptocurrency or individual crypto asset.
Yeah.
So, that's why you see a lot of exchanges. They kind of just list almost anything as long as it's not classified as a security. That's really the only caveat. As long as it's not classified as a security, you can list it. So it's not as selective, but it's still a selective process because you don't want to just list some shit coin that no one's going to want or no one's going to trade or that you think has no value. So there's definitely a line of ethical judgment you want to use, but you're not a VC firm. You don't have to pick winners.
Yeah. And like you said about the team, going back to that, I mean, I think that's the most important thing as well, because just as an entrepreneur and starting up companies and looking at other startups, I mean, that's always what the most important thing is the team. Like, I would much rather invest or start up a company with a decent idea, but a great team. I'd much rather do that than going with the great idea and no team or no one to help me out with. So, and I've heard that from big entrepreneurs, like on Shark Tank and everything. They said they're buying into the people, the entrepreneur, not the idea. So I would agree with that, just kind of from a macro entrepreneurial standpoint. And what you were saying about Gatecoin, that's interesting, because how would you, as Gatecoin's perspective, what classifies as a security? Because that is such a gray area right now. How do you know, well, this could be a potential security, this one may not be, so let's list it?
Yeah, I think it's a very big gray area, not only in Hong Kong, but in, the world right now. So Hong Kong actually just prevented another thing was called black sell because they were security. So they said, okay, you can't conduct your ICO in Hong Kong because it's listed as security. Now, generally what classifies as security is, something that's going to either give someone equity in exchange for some type of like capital investment, if it pays dividends, a lot of times if you have some type of debt structure. So if it allows someone to become a debtor, or sometimes if like factoring is allowed, then those can all be big signs that something will be classified as security. And I think the SEC has even said that, most, if not all, of these tokens are securities.
Yeah, and then there's projects like Ethereum, which I've read. I mean, it came from an ICO. It was the first ICO, but they're saying, well, it's so developed. Maybe it did start as a security, but now there's so many different moving parts to it that it may not be a security anymore. And so I don't know, have you looked into that? Have you heard anything regarding Ethereum?
Yeah, I think it'll really depend, because some places are saying that if it is, there's some like classifications that, okay, it could be like a utility rather than like a security. But I think that most of this stuff will end up being classified as securities, just because it's, I think it'll be probably easier for the government to do. But I think it's also just, you're going to have, if you have things being used as like investments, like ICOs, like if you have something that's like a speculative asset, then that's probably a pretty good sign that it'll also be a security. So
I'm really looking forward to Kevin O'Leary going back to Shark Tank, two Shark Tank references in one interview. But did you hear how Kevin O'Leary announced that he was working with a big name brand hotel chain in New York City? And in 3 weeks, he says he's going to release some type of tokenized coin that would give out equity or an ownership of this hotel chain, or part ownership of the land or something. Did you hear about that? Because I mean, that sounds like it could really be something positive in the news, and with a big name backing it that's reputable. So I think that maybe that can open it up. Do you have anything to say about that? Have you read about it?
I have not heard that. So they're trying to just allow for people to buy equity into a hotel then?
Yeah. So he wouldn't say the name of the hotel. Obviously things are under NDA, but I mean, he went up there and he said he's been working on this deal for 2 months, and he's been they're tokenizing a portion of this hotel. So yeah, they would give out part ownership of this hotel chain. And I don't know if it was just for that one hotel. And I think he said it was a chain. It may just be a big brand in New York. But the biggest thing that I got out of it, he said that he was working very closely with the government and with regulatory bodies such as SEC. So, I mean, if Mr. Wonderful is making plays out there and he's tokenizing things, and I mean, he's going to do it legitimately. He's not going to do something under the radar. He just has a name to keep up with and too much money into it. So I think that's going to be fascinating to see where that goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think that tokenization is something that is really on the rise. And I mean, like I said before, not everything needs to be tokenized, but if you're going to tokenize like, some type of equity into a hotel chain, maybe that could be a decent use case. It kind of depends on how to play out, whether they're providing like some type of dividend or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it'll be interesting to see, because I agree with you. I think that he's someone who probably is going to do it according to the necessary regulatory steps, which is desperately needed in this space.
Yeah. And that's always something that stood out to me when you told me, and then the first time we talked about crypto, you told me that a lot of these projects don't need these tokens, and that you always told me to ask yourself, can you do this company without tokens or without a blockchain? Can you do this just with a central body, just like a normal private company? And after I've thought about that question, I looked at a lot of these different projects. It's definitely changed my perspective on a couple of these coins. And I had people calling me all the time. They're like, what if we put this on the blockchain? And I was like, I mean, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you have to understand that, decentralization, a blockchain doesn't necessarily make things faster or more efficient. Like a centralized database is a lot faster, and there's a lot of benefits to one. So if you can't immediately benefit from decentralization, meaning like permissionless, trustless, things like that, then there might not be a predominant use case for your company to utilize, some type of token model or public blockchain for that reason.
Yeah. So going back to your experience at Gatecoin, what's it like working in an exchange? Like when I imagine it, I'm thinking like people are running back and forth. They're like, we got a new coin listed and new coin listed here, kind of like the stock market. And, during the 60s or something, when something's booming, or in the 80s, like everyone's just running back and forth trying to figure things out. I mean, what's the sentiment like in the Gatecoin and also in Hong Kong? I know those are two separate questions, but what was the day-to-day like? Are you just sitting on your computer as everyone else, or is there a lot of interaction, people walking around?
Yeah, I mean, most of it you're on your computer. It's like any usual office. Yeah. You do have I would say more interaction with different like cross departments because they are so highly involved. Because for example, like your development team, they are your product, so you need to contact them, especially if you're in the development side, because you need to find ways where you can be like, okay, we're going to list this. What are the logistics? And there has to be a lot of communication between the two. So it's definitely a fun environment. I liked it. You have a lot of smart people, so it's fun being one of the stupider people in the room. I think that is always a fun environment to be in. And so if you can have that, then there's always like a lot of opportunity to learn. So it's really an awesome place to be. And then Hong Kong itself is incredible too. Hong Kong's kind of this it's always been this place of like Western and Eastern clashing. And so it's really been a really interesting transition for crypto. I think that Hong Kong's largely taken relatively laissez-faire attitude. They're starting to do a little more enforcement, and then you also have a lot of money that's come over the border into Hong Kong, and people are investing into crypto via Hong Kong because they can.
So it's the laws are a little bit more lenient in Hong Kong, you would say, than China and everywhere else within Asia.
Y-
I mean, maybe Japan.
y-
It's
So yeah, so as far as like ICOs and that stuff goes, so Hong Kong right now you can do an ICO as long as it's not a security. China has banned pretty much everything. You can still hold, crypto assets, but there are still limitations to ICOs and stuff like that. If you look at Japan, they're starting to increase and have more regulations after the coin check hack, because that's their second major hack, after first being Mt. Gox. So now all exchanges will need an FSA license. I think they are conducting security system checks of the exchanges, which is really, really good. And then you have like South Korea, who has banned ICOs, but they've recently reported that they're probably going to allow ICOs, just because they've had so much money flowing out of their country. And because if you look at any Korean exchange, it probably trades at a premium of like maybe 10 to 20% over any other country. So they're definitely have an interest, and they're trying to find ways where they can keep that interest also in South Korea.
Yeah, it's crazy the hype on some coins just when they say it's about to be listed in Korea and the price of that coin will skyrocket. Like Icon this past week, they said it's going to be listed on BitThumb, one of Korea's biggest exchange, and it's a Korean project. And so the hype around it was just going crazy. It went up 50% in one day.
Yeah, it's insane, man. That stuff happens, especially in places that really, really are very pro cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm. And I was wondering say I am trying to do a token, or I'm trying to release a new coin. What does that process look like from that company's standpoint? If I'm trying to get on Gatecoin, get my coin on there on an exchange, do I just reach out to you via email and say, hey, I'm trying to get my coin on here? Or is there an application process that I fill out on your website? And then there's, of course, multiple stages where you look at and read the white paper, or do you reach out to them? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, so sometimes we reach out to them, but mostly like people reach out to us just because so many people want to be on an exchange, because they want their token to have liquidity so that people can trade it back and forth. Sending a random email is a surefire way, probably not to get a response. Because it's just people are busy. But most exchanges have application forms where you submit all your basic information, the team, your token, investors, stuff like that, and then those get reviewed internally. But those lists also get long, because you have dozens and dozens of people trying to get on an exchange and get listed, and just logistically you can't you can't just list 10 people every day, because you need to do due diligence. It takes time. You have to set up contracts and stuff like that. So the process isn't too long. You could probably get a listing done in maybe like a month's time, but it's still a lengthy process.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask how long it takes for that turnaround. So you said about a month from when they could send it. I mean, give or take a week or two, maybe, or maybe 2 weeks from the time they send in their application, they could potentially get their coin on the exchange within a month.
Yeah, it's whenever I think it first gets eyeballs on it, then maybe the countdown might start, just because it generally takes so much time. If it's a good project, or someone knows someone in the project, then that can expedite things a lot, just because you have a mutual level of trust, or you at least know, okay, like I know who's running this project. I know they're not just some shitty, terrible project. So that can help as well.
And so with companies like Binance, who are just putting on coins it seems like every other day there's a new coin.
Yeah.
How do they cope with that? Is it just that they have more people that are reading all these white papers? And then also next, I want to talk about the security, but that'll probably be a whole subject in itself. But I mean, how do these huge exchanges deal with the volume of all of this?
Yeah, I think Uh, I mean, I think you could say they don't. I think that a lot of exchanges, there's a lack of resources. Like if you look at any customer support for any exchange, it's probably awful. You're not going to get a response in like at least a week time. So I think exchanges are growing so rapidly that they're kind of almost just like stopping the bleeding. Like they're trying to grow, but they're doing it at such a fast rate that it's really, really hard. And so a lot of exchanges, even for like listings, have now said, okay, your coin will be listed on our platform for a month, and if it doesn't have decent enough volumes or stuff like that, then we'll delist it.
Oh, okay. I
So
didn't know
I
that.
think that also, yeah, I know Bittrex does that. I'm pretty sure Binance does that. Not positive on that, but so it really, really just depends.
Okay. And then as for the security, when you have all these coins coming in and out, how do you keep that secure? Because you have to have the hot wallet for trading. You have to have cold storage offline so hackers can't get into it. I mean, how is that possible when millions and millions of people are going in and out and potentially billions of dollars going in and out?
Yeah, so security is really important. And so most exchanges, they'll use some type of multi-sig cold wallet. And then they'll also have, a hot wallet just to transfer funds. And generally, that's where like you're actually trading from. So if you put in some type of buy order, then you'll be pulling funds from the hot wallet. And so it's a but some exchanges, I'm sure they do keep a lot of money in their hot wallet, which isn't really a good business plan. Luckily at Gatecoin we had really good security, but yeah, I think security is something that's really a problem. If you look at like CoinCheck, like they had
Yeah.
you know $400 million lost because they had everything in a hot wallet. So I think you still have a lot of people that kind of have the it'll never happen to us syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And it
and
happens to
I
them.
think exactly. And then hundreds of millions of dollars go out the door. So I was actually just looking at a stat the other day. I think Mount Gox, the amount stolen, like in today's prices, is like 14 billion. So
Wow.
I mean, you have like you really just have to be careful. You have to make sure you have good security, personal security. You need a cold storage wallet. You got to have one, whether it's like a Ledger Nano S or a Trezor or something to keep your funds in.
Awesome. And more general and macro about the sentiment in Hong Kong and in China with the markets going down and people acting like this is the first time this has ever happened and freaking out. I mean, what do you say to those people, and how does it feel around you in an exchange and everything too? Are people just focused and they don't even look at the prices? Or I mean, is it hard not to look at the prices every day?
I think you start not to look at the prices. I mean, unless you're like actively day trading, but
Yeah.
I don't do that because
Yeah.
that's pretty difficult to do. Um, but so I think you start not looking at the prices because you start really just caring about the movement rather than the money. So I think for anyone who's serious about the space or really wants to get in it, I would highly suggest focusing about the applications that blockchain and this decentralized technology can bring, rather than what's the price of, I don't know, Neo today or something like that. Because I mean, it's a market. No one knows whether it's going to go up or down. It will do both, I promise.
Yeah.
So I think not worrying about that is a lot healthier too. It lets you sleep a little easier at night.
Yeah, this is a good time to say that none of this is financial advice. We are not financial advisors of any sort whatsoever. We're just two dudes talking crypto and blockchain. But yeah, I think that is a good point. I mean, you can do well day trading, but I
Yeah,
feel like there are just so many external factors that you cannot see in a trend. You can't see in a chart. And there's so much money in it right now that can just pull out in a matter of
yeah,
seconds. Kind of like the trustee for Mount Gox who pulled out, I forgot how many hundreds of millions of dollars just, and
Yeah.
ended up coming out and announcing it. And some people say that crashed the market. Some people say, no, it didn't. But I mean, if there is one player like that, there are probably a lot more out there.
Yeah. And you have to remember, it's still very unregulated.
Mm-hmm.
Things like insider trading are not illegal, so people are allowed to do them. So you have very gray areas that people still operate in that they wouldn't be able to in a traditional financial market. So it really is the Wild West in a lot of sense.
Awesome. Well, if you want to say anything else about Gatecoin or about your experience, do you have anything else you'd like to share just about crypto right now at where it stands right now, or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we're still very early in crypto and, the crypto revolution. I think things are drastically going to change within, the coming years. And so I think it's really exciting. So don't feel like that it's too late. Don't feel like that you still can't learn, because, I promise you, I haven't been in this for that long. And it's already changed my life. So it's really something worth diving into.
Yeah, and I would 100% agree. And right now I was going to do a little screen share and we can go over some articles on that same note of how things are changing so rapidly. I mean, within a couple of days, all of this crazy news has happened. So I'm just going to, first off, always want to look at the market cap. Let me refresh this to make sure it's live. And one thing I would like to ask you, I always like to look at the Bitcoin dominance. So right now it's at 43.7%. Do you see Bitcoin? Can you maybe say you're a Bitcoin maximalist, or do you believe in altcoins and that there's room for a lot of different projects? Because a lot of times people just say, oh, well, Ethereum and all these other smaller coins, altcoins, that they think they all do the same thing as Bitcoin. And they're like, well, no, Bitcoin's number one. That's the only thing that's going to succeed. What's your stance on that?
Bitcoin is the original. It's what, has really founded this environment. So I'm by no means a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not really positive whether Bitcoin will actually be, the number one coin in, the next maybe 5 to 10 years. I think it really depends on how the ecosystem evolves, and if Bitcoin is able to evolve with it. I think that Bitcoin right now has a case for a store of value, just like it's no more like digital gold. I think that's really its only use case right now. If you have, second layer technology like Lightning Network that ends up making it a decent medium of exchange, that makes it able to be able to use for transactions, then maybe it has a longer term use case. But as it stands now, I don't see Bitcoin being the dominant force for the future.
Mm-hmm. And we may have not even seen it yet. It may come in a year or two. I mean, you never know. It can be compared to things like the internet. One thing I have noticed recently,
Yeah,
though.
I mean,
go ahead.
No, go for it.
So one thing I have noticed recently is that usually all of the different altcoins are tied with Bitcoin. Like when Bitcoin goes down, everything goes down. When Bitcoin goes up, everything goes up. And I mean, this has just happened in the past 2-3 days that I've seen a couple of altcoins that are going up while Bitcoin goes down. And it seems like maybe finally there may be a little separation between the two, but I'm not sure it hasn't happened long enough. So have you noticed the same thing? I mean, just how every time Bitcoin goes down, everything goes down. It controls the whole market.
Yeah, I think everything's still really highly correlated to one another. I mean, Bitcoin's, it's still going to be around. So I think until you start to see like a lot of these projects fall off, you're probably not going to get any sort of real difference or real diversification from one another. So I think that it'll probably take some time for them not to be correlated.
Mm-hmm. And so the market cap right now is at around 329 billion, almost 330. and which is crazy just considering that a few months ago it was at what, 800 billion. I mean,
Yeah,
it's crazy how,
something
and that,
like it.
yeah, and that can just happen within a few months. So let's go over a couple of articles. The first being my favorite bullish news, if you will, about Binance. They're the biggest cryptocurrency exchange in the world, is heading to Malta. They were talking, where were they based? In Hong Kong, and then all their servers were in Japan. Are you familiar?
So Binance says they're based in Hong Kong, but I don't really think they have a very strong presence here. I think they have some type of I'm sure office, but their major office is in Japan for sure. And so they've recently been dealing with the FSA in Japan, which is their regulatory body. And so Binance, they're looking to open up bank accounts and stuff like that, because I know they want to add fiat trading to their exchange, which will be a game changer for them.
Yeah, that will be absolutely huge. I mean, here it says they're trying to start a fiat to crypto exchange. And the great thing about cryptocurrency is a country says, look, you can't do this, we're going to regulate you. Binance says, all right, we'll go to Malta. We can take our business elsewhere, because I mean, they can just pick up and go, which is amazing. And Malta, of course, has been extremely welcoming with open arms. I think it was, whether they have like a prime minister or the leader of the country came
Yeah.
out. He was like, welcome Binance.
Yeah, I think he actively tweeted at him.
Yeah. Of course, Twitter, that's where the real deals are made. And
yeah, but I mean, I was just say that's like what all these crypto assets, all these foundations, companies can do. It's like, if some country like the U.S. isn't friendly, then we're just going to go to the Cayman Islands. We're going to go to Malta. We're going to go somewhere that is going to be friendly to our corporation.
yeah, and if for Binance to potentially partner with a real bank, that would be a huge partnership, and that would be just huge for the whole crypto community in general, because then it could really bring some legitimacy to it, having a real bank maybe insure it or something.
Yeah, that would definitely help. Right now, the banking situations for a lot of crypto based companies or crypto based foundations is pretty nil.
Yeah, and on that same note, there's another article this week that said British bank Barclays partners with Coinbase. And this one, I was telling you earlier, kind of went under the radar. I didn't see it until I was really going back and reviewing the news this week. But it says that initially, most British banks have abstained from doing business with cryptocurrency related businesses due to concerns of illicit activities. And Coinbase believes a new partnership with Barclays will make Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies trading. It'll be much faster and easier for British investors. So it seems like there's a lot actually going on in the UK involving cryptocurrencies. There was another article that said something about how just the UK is just starting to become bullish and starting to be more open-minded with cryptocurrencies. And I mean, it's pretty crazy how they'll be able to do this and potentially partner and get backed by Barclays. And I know you said you heard about this, but sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I think a lot of countries are realizing, we need to make sure that we can utilize this technology. We need to make sure that we want to draw, this type of investment into our country. And, I think Britain has always been, had London as a financial center of the world, and I think they want to continue that. So they need to make sure that they don't fuck this up.
Yeah. And here was the other good news that I was trying to refer to. It said Coinbase also received an e-money license by the British Financial Conduct Authority. So
yeah, and Coinbase even created they're creating like a self-regulatory body with like eToro. And so I think that's a really, really good step. I think that they're going to outline a decent framework for regulations, for ethical practices, that I think they'll be able to kind of strong arm and socially pressure other people into using.
Yeah, and again with another bank who's starting to open their doors. This is more towards just blockchain technology as opposed to cryptocurrencies, but Santander, I forgot how we said we were going to pronounce that, but this Santander Bank, which is it's a Spanish bank and they're huge internationally. I actually know someone who's working there in Brazil and it's one of the biggest banks there. And they said that they're going to launch international payments through an app this spring if no one beats them to it. And there's actually a quote down here. This spring, if no one beats us to it, we'll be the first large retail bank to carry out cross-border payments at scale with blockchain technology. And what I understand, they're going to be using Ripple's X-Current platform, which allows for incredibly fast and cheap and efficient transfer of currencies across banks internationally. But they're not using Ripple's X Rapid platform, which uses XRP. So of course, there's people all over Reddit and everywhere saying, oh, Ripple's going up, it's going to the moon, bring us our Lambos now. But this is not using X Rapid. This is not using XRP as of yet. So that's always something to keep in mind. But still, it's like you said, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that's something good to know. I don't think want to use any type of cryptocurrency unless you eventually get maybe like a sovereign backed one. But I think banks are definitely in it for the technology, the blockchain protocols, as opposed to any individual currency. So it'll be interesting to see if or when. I'm sure they eventually will allow transfers in like Bitcoin and stuff, but I think it might take a little while.
Yeah, agreed. And it's interesting that it says they invested in Ripple in 2015 and 16. I mean, a lot of people who are just new to the space, you never really, you think that everything just started when you started around that time. But these companies have been around for a while. Some of these cryptocurrencies have been around for a while, and they've been working on this for a lot longer than you've probably been in it. So always
definitely
to think about. All right, and next,
there are definitely some people who know the space.
Yeah. Next, Yahoo Japan to launch cryptocurrency exchange in 2018, and I think it was and we were laughing about this beforehand because Yahoo in America is somewhat of a joke. Would you say? I mean,
Yahoo. Yahoo is waiting for someone to come over and just take the final whack to the head to put them out of their misery.
Yeah, and
I don't know how they're alive.
I was reading on Reddit, and one of the comments was like, "Oh, perfect, just what we need." The biggest company who had one of the biggest hacks last year about to release a cryptocurrency exchange. But to clarify, apparently this Japanese Yahoo is different from the Yahoo that we all know in America. And apparently it's a lot bigger than what we use in America. Like it has a big following. It's a reputable company. And it says that they have received further investments to make this cryptocurrency exchange. And it says the 40% stake will cost the firm around $19 million. So it's not pocket change. They're getting serious with this. And even Binance CEO had something to say about it. So there's just another example. I mean, this is what the news has been this week. Just this company's thinking about it. I know, was it Google and another big company said they were getting into the blockchain this week. Do you know who that other company was?
Yeah, it was Google. I can't think off the top of my head. No. So everyone just putting blockchain.
Yeah, exactly. Like Long Island Iced Tea, they add blockchain to their name and they go up 100% in the stock market or something. All right, and staying
ridiculous.
Well, actually, we were just in Asia. Now going back to Europe, this was big, and you mentioned that you knew a little bit more about what was actually written, but France came out, and the French finance minister tweeted this: "We will not miss the hashtag blockchain revolution, crypto actives, Bitcoin, ICO, fintech. France wants to be force a proposal to build the world of tomorrow. So that is awesome. That is, I mean, you can't sugarcoat that anymore. They're saying we want to help this technology and we want to embrace it. We are not going to restrict it. So can you go over a little bit of what the document said that they released?
Yeah, so they gave general guidelines for what they're trying to do with their ICO guidelines. So, for example, they're going to create voluntary guidelines that will be, essentially optional for cryptocurrencies and crypto firms to follow. So, these will probably be like best practices of, KYC, AML, which is KYC is know your customer, AML is anti-money laundering, which are two, pretty well needed things in the space. They're going to, have investor disclosures, stuff like that are going to be all voluntary. So if a company does it, awesome. If they don't, then they're not going to be penalized or anything like that, and they'll still be able to operate in France. But I think that it's a really good step because it kind of covers both worlds. And then, eventually if they either want to decide to make the, regulations mandatory, they can, or hopefully you'll have enough ethical companies that will kind of socially pressure people into doing it. Or maybe, if someone's investing in an ICO and, you have to pick between an ICO that doesn't voluntary comply and one that does, you'll pick the one more information about that discloses more. So I think it's generally a pretty proactive step towards regulation.
Awesome. I think 2018 is going to be the year of regulation. It's going to be exciting. I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know where it's going or what's going to happen when it comes to regulation. I mean, but everything that I've seen seems like they understand that this technology is here to stay and that there's a lot of potential with blockchain and there is room and opportunity for cryptos. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I agree. I think regulation is definitely going to be a major point in the coming year. And as long as countries keep staying proactive, then I think that that's a generally positive note.
Yep. So that's everything that happened this week. It seems like that could have been a year's worth of material and news, but that was just all in the past week. And like I said, we're going to be doing more videos like this. We're going to be doing news recaps. We're going to go over some projects that Mason has read about. I mean, he dives deep into white papers like it's his job, which it was. That was a joke. But yeah, thank you so much, Mason, for sharing your experience at Gatecoin and everything. I mean, I think a lot of us don't really know what it's like to work at an exchange and what's going on behind the scenes. So I think that was valuable.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me on. Always fun. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And everyone, make sure again to subscribe to this channel if you are not already subscribed. And if you are, smash that like button, tell your friends, tell your family, get everyone involved, and I'll see you next time.